Most agency founders are building something that isn't growing in value, and they don't realize it until it's too late because they've confused creative output with commercial value. But great work doesn't make a sellable company. Systems do, repeatable processes do. A business that functions without the founder wearing every single hat is what creates value. But most experienced operators skip that part. They focus on the craft, the clients, the creative, and they assume that the business will just figure itself out. In the end, they build a high-stress job with no relief and no exit plan. My guest on the podcast today is John Warrillow. Now, he's shaped how thousands of owners think about value, leverage, and exit. And through Built to Sell and his Value Builder system, he's helped to set the standards for what a proper business looks like without the owners with their fingers in every pie. And in our chat today, we dive into why most agencies aren't sellable, they're trapped in a cycle, why doing less is the first serious move to building value, how productizing a service actually works and why most people do it backwards, and the value of IP in a service firm and why owned data beats strategy every time. Now, this is a conversation for anyone who's tired of being the bottleneck in their own agency and are ready to stop lying to themselves about what it really takes to break free. If that's you, then don't miss this episode of the Brandmaster Podcast. First and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time to grace us with your presence today.
It's good to be with you, Stephen.
Now, John, I read one of your books that had a massive impact on me, Built to Sell, many moons ago when I was starting my agency, and it did leave an impression on me. So first and foremost, thank you for writing that book, because it gave me a head start that I really needed, and had I not read that book, I really wouldn't have gotten. And a lot of people in the room here will kind of align with me on that. Those who have read the book and learned from your teachings. But I want to hear from you a little bit as to what you've been up to since then. So let's say go back in the last few years or so, since since maybe 2020. What have you been up to, and what are you kind of busy at the moment?
Wow, yeah. So the book Built to Sell evolved into a software platform that entrepreneurs can measure and evaluate themselves using the same principles that Ted Gordon taught Alex Stapleton in Built to Sell. So we look at we measure everybody using a questionnaire called the Value Builder questionnaire, and we give them a score on 8 metrics that drive the value of their company. And that software is used by we've had 80,000 business owners get a Value Builder score. We give everyone an estimate of value of what their company is worth. And we license that to advisors around the world who use it with their customers as a way to kind of start a strategic conversation with them. So think of it a little bit like a Myers-Briggs for a business. It's like an evaluation of a company, qualitative metrics that we do. So that's been keeping me super busy over the last sort of decade.
I'd say so. And how, just as a side kind of insight to that, how's AI impacting you guys? Or how's AI elevating you guys, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly making our team a lot more efficient. So we're heavily leveraging AI. All the developers that we have are increasing their throughput and so forth. The value of a company and how you might measure it and think about it tends to be a very personal thing. I think a lot of people want to rely on the help of an advisor, so that's why we go to market through advisors. But yeah, we're certainly seeing an impact of AI from a standpoint of just efficiency for sure. We haven't seen it necessarily in a drop in appetite for people to understand how to improve the value of their company. That seems to be more personalized, oftentimes involving an advisor.
Right. So look, let's kind of get underneath the hood of this to your kind of bread and butter. When we think about building building a creative business, a strategic business, a brand building business, a lot of us start off from the freelancer perspective, exactly how it was in the book Built to Sell,
Yep.
and then we try to build our processes and systems around that. What would you say is the main reason that most agencies that you would look at would be unsellable, and where would be the first, let's say, three things that you would aim to go in, look underneath the hood, and say these are the things that you need to fix straight away?
Yeah, so it's not that they're unsellable. Oftentimes, it's that in order to sell, the owners would have to sign up for a very long and high proportion earnout. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. On the podcast, I interviewed a guy who started a marketing agency, and they were acquired with 90% of the value of his agency was at risk in an earnout. And for those of you who don't know what an earnout is, it's basically where you sell your business and then you sign up for a set of goals as a division of one of the, an agency holding company or your acquirer. And that's a really risky proposition for you because you don't really control the outcome of your earnout. And so it's just lots of problems associated with that. So what you want to do is build a company that can thrive without you, because that's gives you a valuable company you could transition without a giant earnout,
Mm-hmm.
and B, it just improves your lifestyle. And so whether you want to sell or not, I think the first step is doing less as opposed to more. The reason most agencies get into trouble when they're trying to make this transition is that the founder, he or she is fairly good at a lot of things, right? So they've been in the design world for a decade, as an example, right?
Yep.
So they understand print design, web design, they understand every aspect. They understand animation, and they understand how to do all aspects of design. And it leads them to sell all of those different services. The problem, of course, is that in order to build a company that can thrive without you, you have to hire people to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, the people that you're hiring can't do all the things that you can do. And so they end up generating like a crappy product because you're asking them to one day be an animator, the next day be a digital designer, the next day create, billboards for an outdoor campaign. And they don't have the skills to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first step in the process, as counterintuitive as it may sound, is to do less. Is to say, okay, we're going to be like, I'll give you an example. We work with a marketing agency whose entire niche is building email lists for newsletters. That's all they do. And they have been growing like stink because lots of people want email newsletters. They want to own, they're kind of moving off social media and they want to own their own list. And these guys, they're called Grow Letter, and all they do is help you grow your newsletter list. That's like a niche within a niche within a niche, right? So most agencies tell us your problem, and we're creative people who are going to bring us a solution to your problem. It's bullshit. It's like incredibly nebulous, and it's like we're really smart and strategic, and it's completely it's the domain of like the founders of these agencies who like to be stimulated by solving problems. It's great if all you want to be is an independent freelancer. Like, absolutely. Wouldn't you love to just sit there and solve your, creative problems or come up with creative solutions to problems all day long? Absolutely. That's super fun. It's not a business. It's a practice. It's a bunch of guys and gals who want to be consultants. That's fine. It's not a business. It's a consultancy. It's a whatever. If you want to build a company, Grow Letter is a company, right? Grow Letter is a business that you could sell because it's got a bunch of people who know everything there is to know about building your email list, right? And that has been taught, codified, and it's a growing company that is not dependent on the owner anymore. And it comes down to like, what do you want? Do you want the intellectual stimulation of solving critical challenges? That's awesome. You could do that in your own agency. You could go work at Deloitte. You could do that. You go work at any number of brand consultancies out there, right? And you can get paid reasonably well. It's not a business. Like, It can never be a business.
Mm.
And when I say it can never be a business, it can be a business that you could sell, but you're going to have an earnout where all of the partners in that business will sign up for a 5-7 year earnout where they're basically taking their independence and giving it up for a job inside a company for the next 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's torture for people who are creative thinkers. So it's like, there's no real end game associated with that model. Anyway, you got me on my rant, but that's so the first step is picking one thing. And if you want to do this, but I think even before that, you have to decide, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to build a brand consultancy, which is impossible to sell? Or do you want to do something that you could sell? Do you want to build a brand consultancy, which is probably intellectually very rewarding, but you can never leave. You will never take a vacation. You will never be able to leave. Or put it more bluntly, whenever you leave, the company will stop, right? So if you go on vacation, you go on sabbatical, it's over. Like, your company will stop. You'll come back 6 months later and you'll have to restart it. Or do you want to build a company that can thrive and grow when you're not there? Totally different, right? Mm-hmm. Like night and day. So could you build a brand consultancy that is built to sell? No. Mm-hmm. Flat out, no.
Yeah.
As far as I know, what a brand consultancy does, by very nature of the output, it's impossible.
Yeah. So look, just kind of to clarify on that, building a brand consultancy with the idea of kind of a lifestyle business where you are the kind of bottleneck and the go-between, and you're not kind of building a company with people around you. That makes it incredibly difficult to take that time. And what I'd like to kind of dig into with you on would be at that starting point. So let's say you're in an agency, you're in a creative agency, a branding agency, and you are the bottleneck, you are the conductor, the go-between, you are the point of contact for every single client. And you want to let go of that because you're not necessarily thinking about selling, but you want to build a business built on systems. What would be the first place that you would start to systematize everything that's kind of swimming up in your head, all of jumping to and fro? What would be the first thing that you would kind of go in there and you go, all right, this is where I got to take the reins on this?
Yeah, again, it's the first step is committing to doing less. Mm-hmm. And then I think the next step is to really get very specific about who your product or solution is targeted at. Mm-hmm. So eating our own dog food, and as marketers, we always talk about target market, and we always talk about getting really specific about the target market. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to build a business that can thrive without you, you have to come up. The most important step is productizing the service, right? Okay. And we could talk about productizing the service, but the first step in productizing a service is defining your target market in such a hyper niche way that you can come up with a homogeneous problem that you can build a productized service that doesn't change. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by that? So a productized service is a service that it looks and feels like a product. In the Built to Sell book, that's the 5-step logo design process. But there's lots of examples of people that are productizing this service. The key to a productized service is it does not change every time you offer it, right? This is a real problem for creative people because creative people love to change things, right? They love to be creative. It's in the name, right? So they come up with their 5-step logo design process or their equivalent of that. And then every client they meet with says, well, I have a different challenge, right? Oh, that's not exactly how I want to do it. And they abandon their process because their client is different. Their client may be different because they haven't done the hard work to say, no, we are going to define our target market. Like in the case of Grow Letter, right? Mm-hmm. They've got on some billboard somewhere, some whiteboard somewhere, their target market are entrepreneurs with an email list of at least 10,000, focused on a 6-digit NAICS code in one of 3 cities. They've got a very, very, very specific niche of all these people that need their service, right? So the reason productized services often fail is they have the person developing them hasn't done the hard work of saying this is our hyper niche,
Hmm.
right? It's not like women aged 25 to 54. Like that's not enough, right? You've got to say women who drive a Volvo, her kids are into soccer, who's got a BA degree and she works in finance or whatever. Like that's the level of hyper focus you have to have in order to develop something that doesn't change with every customer you run into. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, we are you're preaching to the choir with us in terms of, in fact, we're running a sprint at the moment. We're running 3 sprints over the next 90 days, and this week alone is about targeting your niche. So that is getting hyper focused on, the self-identification term that the person will put their hand up to say. We're right in that we're that's kind of our bread and butter as to what we believe as brand strategists. Where I'd like to really start to understand and to dig into are the productization steps that we might go through. Now, of course, we have different agencies. Our models are slightly different. We are creatives kind of at heart. Nevertheless, there are a certain set of steps that you must bring clients through in order to help them to understand their position in the market, to help them to understand their messaging, and then to later on go to market with an action plan for mobilization. So, with that kind of, as much as that can vary from one person to the next, ultimately they are the steps that in some way, shape, or form must be followed. How would you look at kind of identifying, all right, let's break down the steps exactly, and then taking step one as an example, let's productize that and systematize that. What would that look like?
I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to. Are you saying that if I owned a marketing agency and I wanted to go through the process of like productizing my service, how I would do it, or how if I was hired by a client, whether that's a car dealership or a technology company, to develop their
No, no,
system? Like,
no. So let's call it a marketing agency. So a
okay.
marketing agency, because ultimately brand sits under the umbrella of marketing to some. Marketing sits on under the umbrella of brand to others. But really, it's that agency style where you want to deliver this service. You know what your clients need. You've got this process that you need to take them through, but you want to systematize it in a way where you can bring in other people, you can step away, you can build it up so it's valuable without you. Essentially, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build agencies that are valuable without us, and in order to do that, we need to systematize.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want to do that, again, the first step is figuring out the one thing that you're going to offer. Are you going to be an SEO shop? Are you going to be an animation studio? Are you going to
Hmm.
do, are you going to help people grow their email newsletters? Um, the second step is figuring out your niche. As we talked about, hyper niche is going to be necessary. The third step is just like figuring out the process that you go through. And this might be, unconscious. It often helps to have someone interview you about your process, because some things that you do unconsciously, you don't realize you're doing it, but oftentimes they're a key part of your process. So you might say to a customer, so you might say, okay, so you're going to focus on, I'll just use this example. You're going to be a marketing agency that helps people build their email newsletter lists. Okay, great. So like walk me through last time you did that for a client. How, like what were the steps you took to do to help them do that? And they'll kind of define the steps. And again, some of the steps they'll be clear on. They'll say, well, step 3 is X, whatever. Other steps, oftentimes the interviewer has to sort of tease out of the person because it's not immediately obvious to the person doing it that they do that. But that's going to be a component of it. You got to brand it. So in the world of AI, like anything generic is being obviously fed up through AI. So, if you have, in the case of Alex Stapleton, it was like the 7-step logo, the 7-step logo design process, the 5-step logo design process. That like he had a name for it. Products. If you're going to productize your service, you need to name it and brand it and articulate the steps in the process, because ideally you're not the one selling it, right? You've got people on your team, or you've got a brochure or a website or some way to sell that, other than you getting on a Zoom call and kind of trying to mumble through or fumble through a sales conversation. You need a brochure or some, again, website, whatever. So it needs to be branded, because that gives it a point of differentiation from, frankly, ChatGPT, right? Like anybody can ChatGPT. Like I'm a car dealership based in Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm looking to like come up with a unique value prop. Well, like ChatGPT can give you the answer to that question, right? What car buyers want in their dealerships, and they can give you 3. Like you can use ChatGPT to build your brand value proposition. What I'm proposing as an alternative is branding your process for developing or offering your solution, which is branded, which is the ultimate sort of antidote to ChatGPT, right? Like a branded process is the ultimate sort of competitive differentiation from the generic AI models, which just produce generic stuff, right? You've got to somehow convince your customer that what you do in your process is better. And one of the ways that we don't have generic cars, right? Like we call them Volkswagen, we call them Porsche, we call them Audi, because we want to convince the customer that those cars are better than one another. They're not just genericized, right? Everything in a language model is just generic, right? You've got to convince your customers that it's worth them paying more for your process. And that part of that is branding your process, naming it.
Yeah. So really what we need to do a little bit better maybe is to productize what we do in terms of branding it. Maybe it's a sub brand of our agency. This is our agency. This is our productized service, and you market it as a product itself. In terms of delivery of that, how can we make that easier? How can we streamline that, where we take something that we tend to do that's maybe up in our head, we thumbnail over here, we brainstorm over there. How can we kind of take that process and systematize that a little bit better, productize that a little bit better, so that somebody coming into our business, looking at our business from the outside, can see, okay, that's replicatable. That's quite easy to understand. How do we make our products easy to understand, so that somebody looking from the outside can look at it and go, whether they're a client or whether they're somebody looking to purchase the business, they look at it and go, that's easy, I get that. How do we do that? How do we get to that point?
Yeah. So let me introduce you to a tool called TVR. It stands for Teachable, Valuable, Repeatable. And if you're listening to this and you're like, what service do I offer that I could like really brand and productize? What I would do is grab a whiteboard or a blank piece of paper and just write down the services you provide today. So if you're a design agency, maybe you offer web design, you offer brochure design, you offer whatever, just list them all off, right? All the things that you do, and score them, that individual service line, on 3 factors. The first is teachable. So how teachable is that service? If you brought in a kid straight out of school, could you teach them to deliver that service?
Okay.
Right. So brand strategy is a 0, right?
Okay.
You need 10, 15, 20 years of marketing expertise. You need to skin your knees to figure out, okay, this is kind of how you brand and market a product, right?
Okay.
Whereas buying Google search terms, search engine marketing, is highly teachable, right? Give somebody a YouTube course in a couple hours and you can teach them how to buy keywords, how to use Google analytics to set up campaigns and so forth. So that's a very teachable service, right? So teachable. The second is valuable. So the best way to think about valuable or the V in TVR is it's the opposite of a commodity. So there are lots of services that are out there. Fiverr has commoditized design. You can get a logo done for $5, maybe not $5, but like Upwork and Fiverr and all the kind of marketplaces, freelancers have commoditized basic design, right? So basic design, logo design is probably pretty commoditized at this point. Whereas if you're going to offer a service which specializes in helping email newsletter providers build their list, that's so niche and so specific that it's not commoditized yet. We pay GrowLetter $5,000 a month just for them. Like that doesn't include media, but just to help us build out campaigns. That's highly, highly valuable in our case because it's a very specific service. The R is repeatable. So it's TVR, teachable, valuable, repeatable. Repeatable stands for the degree to which customers need that service on a regular cadence. If it's something that you do once for a customer, build a brand identity package as an example, that's a 0. Because people only need a brand identity package probably once, right? Unless they have dozens of brands in their portfolio. Whereas if you buy Google search terms for your clients, that's a service that they need every month. Because if they use SEM, then that's something they need to kind of continue to optimize. So that would get a 10. And you're going to just go through the process of scoring all of the services that you provide against these 3 metrics: teachable, valuable, repeatable. What you'll probably find when you do that is the things that are most teachable, right, are also the least valuable. Let me say that again. The things that are most teachable are the most commoditized.
Yeah, and we're seeing that with GPT now.
Right, yeah. And the opposite is also true. The things that are most valuable, right, are the hardest to teach.
Okay.
Brand strategy is super valuable. People pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for super hard to teach, right? What I would recommend, the mistake most people make is they take what is unique and they try to make it teachable. And I would recommend doing the exact opposite, which is take what is teachable and make it unique. So if you have a process, if you say, okay, I'm going to be search engine marketing, right? We're going to buy keywords for customers and we're going to give them a fancy report, whatever. So how do you make that unique? Well, you do that by differentiating that service, by branding it, by coming up with a unique hook, by maybe focusing on a specific niche or an industry, or having some benchmarking data that you and you only alone have some sort of competitive benchmarking against their competitors, some way to make your search term buying or PPC buying offering unique. And that's about branding, right? So it's taking it. So I would, again, you go through the TBR exercise. What you'll probably find is the T and the V are competing with one another. Most people say, okay, let's figure out what's valuable and then let's try to make it teachable. It's almost always a failure. But if you do the opposite, find out what's teachable and then make it sound unique.
Yeah, and I really like that, and the kind of alarm bells that went off for me there and for everybody else here is that what we do as strategists is super valuable, and it's the last thing that becomes kind of teachable, because there are so many levels to what we do. But what you're also saying, and for me as well, where I'm seeing an opportunity in this, is to find something. I'm going to go into a little bit of funnel marketing now. Find something on the front end of your agency, of your service, of your funnel, of your value ladder, and make that repeatable, make that productized, and then you can go out there and sell that at a low ticket offer, and then people come through that, and on the other side, if you bring that product through and they kind of teach the audience as well, you might set them up for consultancy on the back end of that. So I think the idea there that you sparked with me is to productize, certainly in the consultancy space, because it's such high value, productize something on the lower end that we can get kind of clients in the door as more of a lead gen system.
Stephen, can I follow up on something there?
Yes, go ahead.
I'd love to tell you a quick story. So 25 years ago, I got invited to participate in a thing called Birthing a Giant. Since been since rebranded, but it was a group of entrepreneurs, all of whom met at the MIT Executive Education Center for 3 years. We had a bunch of speakers come in. We had all these fancy speakers kind of speak, and it was a really unique session. One speaker I almost missed because I didn't want to hear another story of rags to riches story of an entrepreneur who sold his company, right? This guy comes in and he's just sold his company for a truckload of money and 60 entrepreneurs in the room. And he starts with a question. He says, all right, how many of you guys and gals are selling your product or service, right? Are involved in selling your product or service? And like, of the 60 people in the audience, literally like 60 hands go up in the audience, right? Because we're kind of like the 12-year-old girl in math class who knows the answer and like wants the teacher to pick her, right? The hand kind of waving in the audience. And he says, okay, put your hands down. He said, you all have the right skills. You're selling the wrong product. Your job is to hire salespeople to sell your product. Your job is to sell your company, is to always be applying that unique skill set that you have as a salesperson and apply it not against your client or against finding customers, but apply it against your own business. Mm-hmm. And so I think the mental masturbation that most brand agency owners want to do is to solve clients' problems. That's what gives them their jollies, right? Yet what I would want you to do is do the exact same thing for your own company. And every time you find yourself tempted to start working on a client's job, is to say, no, that's not my job as the owner. My job as the owner is to put all my creative energy, all my unique skill set, and apply it against the one brand that actually is going to move the needle, which is my company, right? So when you define your 5-step logo design process, like you should be putting the maximum energy of your brand capabilities, not in your client project, but in branding your own service. When you're thinking about like, how will my intake questionnaire look for new clients, right? Like that's the thing you should be spending your branding superpowers on, is how good my intake questionnaire can look. What do I want people to like? What does the email say when they sign up for my website newsletter, right? Like, what does that email confirmation say? How can I make that be as sexy and perfect and amazing? That's putting your own creative juices against your company as opposed to your client. Mm-hmm. Find people who can do the work with your clients. Reserve the superpower for your own business. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And that's kind of where a lot of us are at the moment. We're, as I mentioned before, we're running a sprint at the moment, and essentially we're turning the mirror on ourselves. The services that we offer our clients, we're turning it back on ourselves, because it's the whole story of the cobbler and the cobbler's shoes. Yeah. And exactly where we are at the moment is finding that niche, but we're not settling for small business owners who need creative services. It's kind of getting right down into the weeds. And I love your story about the email company, because it just goes to show that although that is technically a marketing company that sits under the umbrella of brand, they are so niche and they've nailed a process that is super relevant and valuable to a very, very specific group of people. When you speak to to your clients and your customers, obviously the very starting point is that is finding that niche. What tools do you give them, or where do you get them to really kind of dig into to go beyond just kind of surface level targeting and really get down into what's relevant to them? What do you push them on to really get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. One is you can get into a hyper niche really drill down. When I say hyper niche, I'm talking about like if you sell to businesses, it's probably like a 6-digit NAICS code. So like not retailers, but like bicycle shop retailers, as an
Yes.
example.
Yes.
So it's probably, you can start with that and really try to get your head around like what it is that the problems that they are trying to solve for and back into a service that you could provide. That's one model, right? So you start with the customer, try to understand like at an intimate level, like what are their pain points, broadly speaking, around marketing and sales and brand strategy and so forth, and then try to build out an offering from there. The other way is to start with what is your superpower. Like if you are like if you like I'll know another branding agency that we worked with, all they do is PowerPoint presentations for executives. That's all they do. It's all they do is they don't do keynote, they don't do mid-market, they don't do small businesses. They say Fortune 500 executives who have to do PowerPoint presentations for part of their work. That's all they do. They charge tens of thousands of dollars for a PowerPoint presentation. Design agency originally, who went through this process of, so that's like their superpower. So they started with the superpower, right? Building PowerPoint presentations. Most people are rolling their eyes right now and going, "Oh God, save me if that's what I have to do for the rest of my life." So their superpower was PowerPoint presentations, and then they went out and said, "Well, who would pay 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand for a PowerPoint presentation?" Well, it would be a Fortune 500 executive who has to present to the public markets where missteps would cost billions of dollars, right? If you say the wrong thing or communicate the wrong idea, it can lop literally billions of dollars off your market capitalization. And so spending 10, 20, 50 grand on a PowerPoint presentation makes a lot of sense, right? So they started with the superpower and then found the target market. I think you can do it both ways. If you're clear on like what your superpower is, and I think most people are, right? Like I'm the world's greatest animator. Okay, great. Well, let's go find people who are willing to pay that. I mean, right now with AI, probably not many, but you could probably like decide what your superpower is and then back into a target market. The other way, if you're not sure and you do a lot of good things like pretty well, I'd be inclined to start with the target customer and then find out like what would they value from coming from you.
So
like, I mean, like, go ahead.
I bet all the time you get people pushing back on that concept because they are afraid of closing the door to business who they could serve in order to serve businesses who they should serve. And hearing you talk about such super niche like PowerPoint presentations for Fortune 500 execs, it just for kind of everybody listening, it really lifts that idea of pigeonholing yourself, because we can really drill down far into very, very healthy markets. Obviously you've shared a couple of stories already about the email company, about the PowerPoint company, but is that something that you find? Do you come across these types of stories often where people were reluctant to niche down and then they...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what, you go through the litany of you go all the way back to Al Reese and Jack Trout, narrow your focus, broaden your appeal if you want to go back that far. But the thing is that once you pick your hyper niche and hyper specific service, so you're going to be the world's best company in helping someone grow an email marketing newsletter list, right? Hyper niche. How many times have I brought them up on this call? 5 times? 7 times? The reason is once you become the world's expert at doing one thing, you become referable. If you're a generic brand strategist, that's a yawn. Like, who cares? There's 1,000 of you out there, right? Like, that's just not differentiating, right? But if you help car dealerships with their point of sale posters, I fucking know who you are.
Yeah.
I absolutely know what you do. And if I had a car dealership that happened to need signage, I'd probably be like, these guys specialize. It's all they do, right? And it makes you referable. So your referability goes through the charts. So for every one customer you have to turn away because, well, you're a bike shop, you're not a car dealership. I do point of sale for car dealerships. You get 5 car dealerships calling you because you become the word of mouth. Like you just stimulate word of mouth You pour
Mm-hmm.
gasoline on your referability because you have one thing. Because people want to refer when you have a little secret, right? And you're like, I know a guy who does marketing for plumbers. Like, that's all he does. Okay. He does marketing for plumbers. Guess what? When you run in a plumber and the plumber goes, man, I wish I had more business. Like, who are you going to refer? You're going to refer the little secret that you have that there's a guy out there that all they do is help plumbers with their marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you referable, and I
Yeah.
think that's the hidden sort of reason that you want to like pick this very specific niche and
Yeah.
do one thing very well.
Yeah, we have some unique characters in the room here. We have one guy who's a brand strategist for hemp businesses.
Sure.
And there's Tyler giving you a wave, and we've got plenty more. And I love the idea of layering. So for me, positioning is the center point of what we do. It's layering. So target market is one layer. What you do is another layer. Do you have or have you seen any other layers other than who we do it for and what we do? Are there any other ways that you've seen where companies make themselves really unique to their audience to make them stand out that bit more and make them a little bit more referable?
Yeah, I mean the how we do it is also,
Mm,
is also a piece of the component. So like, if you have a unique piece of technology, in
hmm
particular in a world of AI, that makes you unique. One of the best ways that people in marketing do this is through benchmarking data. So if you can create some competitive data, so the hemp guy, as an example, what I would want to do is have some competitive benchmarking about brand equity in the hemp space,
mm,
so that you own that data. You go through the trials and tribulations of collecting it. You own it. Like, you don't use ChatGPT. Like, you personally survey people about their perceptions of hemp and how it applies. Like, whatever. Like, I don't know the hemp industry clearly, but you want to own the data, because then you can basically, that's a point of differentiation that ChatGPT can't and doesn't have. So it's part of the how. So having some how, like having some technology. I realize it's hard in a service business to have like hard IP, but
mm,
having something that is your kind of unique uh, way you go to market. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, we have the 5-step logo design process, right? But it's kind of squishy, and it's like when you push against it, it's a little bit like, really? Is that really different than what other agencies? But if you say, yeah, and we've got benchmarking data to show you the value of the brand equity you have in your logo, and we can compare you against the brand equity and famous logos like Nike and Johnson and Johnson. And like, you're all of a sudden saying, oh, they've got some unique IP or some unique way that you do it. So yeah, it's who you do it for, getting super focused on that, what you do. So being clear is the kind of benefit of what it is that you do. And then I think also, if you can have some way that you do it
mm,
that's defendable, that not anyone, because the problem with service businesses is the barrier to entry is zero, right? So you get fired from Omnicom, and all of a sudden you're a brand strategist. Like,
mm,
there's no IP, right? There's
hmm
nothing unique. It's so what you need to do is find something that makes you unique, and sometimes that's going to be how you go about your work.
That's
Benchmarking data is really
I think
really
that's
critical.
probably going to be the number one takeaway from this. What you just said is for listeners to ask themselves the question, because we ask ourselves a lot of questions about what we do, and we pussyfoot around a lot of things. But the question that you just highlighted is super valuable, and that is, what is my IP? We talk a lot about our brand, our messaging, our positioning, our audience, but asking the question, what is my IP? I think that's super valuable, and I'm really glad that you raised that one, because I'm going to be stealing that one and putting it back on everybody who we talk to, because I think it's a question that we don't ask ourselves enough when we come to branding our own services, productizing our own services. What is our IP? And that's applicable even in service-based businesses as well. Um, I'm not going to keep you too long, John. I know you've got a busy day ahead of you. I want to talk to you a little bit after about what you're doing and what you've got for our listeners. But just before that, um, I know that I remember from the book that I read and a lot of your content, you have spoken in the past about bottlenecking and getting out of the way of ourselves. And I know that a lot of our listeners do struggle with that a little bit. They are the bottleneck and they do get in the way, and they can't seem to let go of things that seem to be the things that only they can do. What are the best ways to shake yourself as the bottleneck?
Yeah. Okay. So Jody Cook is someone I interviewed on Built to Sell Radio, the podcast I do, and she ran a social media marketing firm. So if you wanted someone to improve your visibility on Instagram, she would do that for you, right? It was called JC Media, for Jody Cook Media. And she ran through all the same problems that we talked about today. All the clients wanted her, all the, her employees went to her with problems. And she started a log, an 8.5, 11, literally piece of paper that she put on her desk. And every time she had somebody come into her office with a question, how do I do this? Where's this? What should I do about this? She just wrote down the question. And at the end of the day, when everybody had gone home, she created SOPs, standard operating procedures, for each of the problems that she'd run into that day, each of the reasons people had come to her. Over time, she systematized her business using standard operating procedures. Basically, instead of answering the question each time, she started to send people to her SOPs. Over time, she trained her people to start to use the standard operating procedures in her business. When she sold the company, she sold it. And as I said, most marketing agencies, especially ones named after the founder with the founder's initials in them, would typically be succumb to an earnout, right? Mm-hmm. As we talked about, 7 years and 90% at risk. I'm going by memory, but Jody got virtually 100% of her proceeds when she sold her company upfront in cash, because because the company could run without her, because she documented everything using standard operating procedures. So I think that's a good habit to get into, is like, just ask yourself, like, what are the questions people came to me today to get answers to?
Yeah.
And that's probably the place to start systematizing.
Yeah, I love that. I love SOPs, roles, and then hire for the roles. That's definitely something that I think we should all adopt. I'm gonna quick fire jump into a few of the guests, John,
Sure.
who have a couple of questions for you. We do like to keep a little bit engaging, it's not my voice all the time. Mike, do you want to jump in quickly with a question that you have? If you're still there, I can't see. Is he still there? Mike, you're on the mic. You're up. There you go, my man.
I'm not sure if I'm exactly have a question. Thank you, by the way. This is fascinating. I'm asking myself 100 questions now because I'm struggling, John, with whether you focus on a particular industry as we're looking through or you focus on a particular specialization. In my case, I'm looking at open kimono here. I'm looking at focusing on the space industry, subset of technology, I guess, which is a fascination to me and an emerging thing and still discovering its roots as it commercializes, as opposed to going to a specialization subset, which my particular passion is, as Stephen would tell you, happens to be community brand strategy, not communities, but brand strategy communities like Harley Davidson. So this is my angst, is this yin or yang. Now, it doesn't need to be answered. I just thought I'd share that with you. And that wasn't the question. The question when I asked, actually put into the audience, was not a question, was I wonder if we could take the work we do with Brandmaster Academy, because we do have processes, and make that special. And I just threw that out to the members on here. Not that I'm trying to create a franchise, but I'm encouraging Stephen to. But it is one that since I was given this question, this is a big thing for me, and I don't actually no, I go yin and yang on it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would ask, like, to what, like, Harley Owners Group as a membership
Right,
organization,
right.
and those types of organizations uh, are really interesting. That's a very unique niche that I've never heard of before. I guess I would ask to what degree that is like your passion. Is it an interest area? Like on a scale of 0 to 10, are you like an 11 on this, or are you more of a 7? Like, yeah, it's interesting, but I also like, branding and marketing, SEO and SEM and digital. How passionate, I guess, are you about these?
Well, and I think that not to take everybody's time, I think that's the exploration. I think it's true. Maybe I'm a person in search of a quest kind of a thing, because, like you said earlier, the passion I actually have under all things is solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
So in the true consultant's role, kind of a thing. And I tend to be one of the more seasoned people in this group, so I've had 2 or 3 careers before me. But I not to belabor this, but I think you asked the right questions. I sound like a scene out of iRobot here. What is the right question? But I do that you asked the right question. So let me just go with that so that others get to get their questions and go on this stuff. Thank you so much.
Well,
John.
you're using language like quest and exploration as you consider the space industry, Mike. So I think there are some signs for you there, my man. Gemma, do you want to jump in quickly with your question?
Yes, hello. So we are doing lots of work at the moment on niching, as Stephen's already said. So my question is, how do you test your ideas in the niche that you want to explore?
I mean, not to be glib, but I guess the ultimate test is, will somebody buy, right? So, there's, when you're niching down, marketers and acquirers refer to TAM. You've heard of the target total addressable market. Is that a term you've heard before?
Mm-hmm.
Not me. I'll look
So,
into it.
so TAM is basically, it's for total addressable market, but it's basically looking at your niche and saying, how big is that? So if you were to say, I'm trying to think of a good example. Car dealerships in Cincinnati, as an example. Well, how many car dealerships are there in Cincinnati, right? And if I were to get a reasonable market share of all those car dealerships, how much signage do they create? Point of purchase, display material do they buy on a per dealership basis? Well, and so as you start to put like a bit of a quantitative size around the market, and you just want to pressure test that size against your goals. So like, is it reasonable to assume that if you niche down as much as car dealerships in Cincinnati, as an example, like, is there enough business for you to go after? That's one way to test your idea, is like, what's the TAM, or total addressable market? The ultimate acid test is going to be like, can you get someone to buy? And I know that sounds glib, but it is really the most important acid test out there. I wouldn't spend a ton of time on spreadsheets and plotting. I'd go talk to some people and say, like, if we did this, and like in the case of the last person who asked a question, like a consultancy based on membership organizations, like, go talk to half a dozen and say, like, hey, like, if we built a consultancy and we created some benchmarking data, and we charged you this amount of money to run your private Facebook group, as an example, like, is that something you would buy from us? And you obviously got to discount back what people say, but there will be some signal in there as to whether there's a there, I think. So those are a couple of ideas, Gemma.
Yeah, I think that really resonates with me, because I've just done a project that was specifically about brand persona, which is a part of brand strategy. So it was this kind of, I've started to think about how I can actually, productize that and make that, part of like more of a niche within the industry that I'm going into. But another question I have is, so what actionable tips do you have about starting to pivot into that, so to be kind of like more niche? Would you completely start from scratch, or would you try and, build on what you've already got and then kind of build out extra pages, say on your website, and, trying to niche, further down in that way?
Yeah, yeah. So this is a tough one because my answer is to burn the boats
Mm.
and go all in. And my reason for that is I did it the other way. So 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I used to have a market intelligence company, and we did qualitative research, quantitative research for big clients. And we got the idea that we were going to move to a subscription model, kind of like a Gartner Group or Bloomberg. And we tried to have our cake and eat it too. So we tried to say, yeah, we can do your custom project. You can hire us to do focus groups or your quantitative market research. But hey, we also over here have this productized service. We've got this syndicated market research offering that you could buy that's highly scalable, et cetera, et cetera. And we tried to like offer both. And what we found was that most people would pay lip service to the quantitative research, the scalable productized service, and say, that's really interesting. Oh, I'll take that into consideration. That's really, now that you're here, can we talk about the focus groups I want to do? And they would basically pay lip service to the thing that I wanted to sell and default to what they were used to buying from us, which was highly specialized, customized, not scalable. And so we did that for a couple of years, and it was kind of like half pregnant. Like we were trying to run two different businesses effectively, and ultimately it didn't work. We got a couple of customers on each side, and it was a mess. Ultimately, we went back and burn the bridges or burn the boats, as they say, and basically turn off the consultancy and say, if you want to do business with us and continue to do business with us, you have to buy this productized service, which is our syndicated market research. And every time we had somebody say, yeah, but I really want 6 focus groups, we'd say, I understand. I can appreciate it. I can refer you to somebody who can do this, but here's what we do. And I found in having that clarity and confidence, Gemma, that gave you, that made it credible in the eyes of customers. Like if you're willing to say no, all of a sudden people lean in and go, okay, well, like, all right, so all right, maybe I wasn't listening before. Tell me more about the thing that you want me to buy. Like, because if they like you and you've done work and good work for them in the past, they will bet in and lean in more when you say no to the other stuff, because it'll be obvious to them that you're serious about it. So I don't have to pay your mortgage. So I don't know what, like whether you had the financial flexibility to kind of survive for a couple of months without, but I don't think it works being kind of half in, half out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
There's a couple of things. I've got 2 more questions. I'm respectful of John's time. I've got Renos and I've got Tyler. Just on you, Gemma, the speaking with the clients directly. I think that's perfect for you, and the brand persona as a sellable service in and of itself, using the Trojan horse strategy with the brand strategy on the back end. So that's a super valuable idea there. So I think that's something to look into. Tyler, Mr. Hemp. You're on the mic, my man.
Yeah, let's make it hempen. So thank you. And this is such awesome content. I really appreciate it, John. My question is related to, well, 2 really quick questions. One, with the idea of IP, is it okay to, like, let's say I'm specializing in the hemp industry, but then I bring in a special method of sorts. Maybe I like have a story brand certification. Would that be kind of within that idea of IP, even though it's not my own process?
Yeah. You mean like literally leveraging story brand, the process?
Yeah. Or like, for example, Mike's point, like maybe we have our own brand master certification. So like we're brand master certified, and that's kind of what helps us differentiate.
Yeah. So what makes hemp unique? Obviously you have a passion for it, but like, what are the unique problems that, are you talking about like hemp retailers or people that make stuff out of hemp? Like what's the niche?
Yeah, like for example, I'm wearing a hemp t-shirt. Many of my clients have like hemp protein products, or they do hemp CBD product lines, tinctures and gummies and stuff like that. So, and then I also work in the hemp building industry. So people that are using raw hemp materials to build homes. So it's a very wide industry, but it's also very niche because it's very hemp specific. Because there's a lot of types of hemp companies.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a pretty broad mandate. So it's hard. Like my first inclination is, ooh, that's like, those are really different businesses to serve. And so what's the common denominator here? It's hemp.
Yeah.
Is like, obviously hemp used in CBD gummies versus a t-shirt versus building materials. Like those are wildly different businesses. So I mean, the only common denominator I'm coming to is like the public perception of hemp. So most people think of hemp, they think of weed, they think of being stoned. So like, is that the perception that we want to change, or are we happy with that perception? So like some sort of benchmarking data, longitudinal. So over time, Tyler, that you could say, here's the public's perception of hemp. It's Tyler's data. He surveyed the public, right? And over time, the perception of hemp is improving, changing in these 6 ways, right? You own the data, you keep it private, it's proprietary, and you sell it, the data about the public perception of hemp products, to the clothing manufacturer, the CBD guy, and the guy who does it in the building materials, to say, that's why you hire me, Tyler, because I have the data on hemp and its public perception, right?
Yeah. So one of the biggest problems that hemp companies suffer with, even hemp t-shirt companies, is getting shadow banned, blacklisted.
Yeah.
You can't do paid ads on Facebook and Google. We have to get creative in our outreach strategies and our marketing channels, because you can't always go the standard channels. So it's like, could I get data related to that? Like,
yes, that's brilliant.
On average, this many hemp companies get shadow banned and blacklisted, kind of thing.
And why I love that, Tyler, is it's changing all the time, right? Because but for benchmarking data to have value, it's got to be like it's got to be evolving and changing, right? So as Facebook changes its rules, Instagram changes its rules for hemp advertising. You can say this, but you can't say this, and it's always changing. The algorithm's always changing. You can be the purveyor, the owner of the black box. I understand how to market hemp products, right? I understand how Instagram views it. I understand how TikTok and Twitter kind of treat hemp related products. It's not in the public domain. It's in my black box. It's the data that I gather, I analyze, and I use it with my clients. That's why you should hire me. Like that's when we talked about the how, like having some sort of IP, like that's real IP. Because You're right. I hadn't thought about that, but of course, yeah, there's probably all kinds of rules, probably geographically different. Like some countries feel differently about hemp products and different platforms. So there's tons of there. I think that's really cool.
Awesome.
Final question. Do you have a resource or like within one of your books or the software that helps us develop that research?
No.
Okay.
I can't think of anything, Tyler. I think you're on your own on that one. But
okay.
But yeah, just just keep studying companies that build out proprietary data. That's where I think you could really make some traction.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Beautiful. We've got last question, John, and then I want to grab a destination for people to go and get what you've got going on. Rinos, you're up, my man. Caught you off guard, Mike.
No, yeah. I was just thoughts in my head. Can you hear me very well?
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, cool. At our studio, we have a reputation for serving the restaurant, the hospitality, mostly restaurants. We made a good name for ourselves. They hunt us down. But we do serve other industries. Other industries are totally different from the restaurant and hospitality industry. We do financial, and then we do fashion, beauty, and hair and beauty, and some other here and there kind of businesses that they've been with us for a while. Now, we identify that when we put experiential branding into the process of building the business's brands, whether they're from similar or totally different brands, we tend to be very successful with it. And there is an upbring and more connection with audiences when we put that in place. What do? Do we forget about the other industries and we concentrate on hospitality and restaurants, since they're the most experiential type of businesses?
Rinos, what do you mean by experiential? I don't know what you mean by that.
Events, serving customers in hospitality, in restaurants, in hotels, and special holiday locations. Those are experiential. They are more like one-on-one with the client, serving the client. The client experiences live, and those are experiential. It's not so much digital involvement, even though the brand has its digital presence. They have online presence, and they promote like everybody else in the digital space.
Okay, so like hospitality, restaurants, those offer an experience.
Yes.
And what is the service you provide them?
We build the brands for them and the actual experience. We build on the experience they have in place to engage with the brand.
Okay,
emotions.
so if I'm a restaurant, like what's an example of like an experiential like service that you might provide?
The process that the clients, my clients, the restaurants engage with their own clients, the process of serving the clients, the process of displaying the food, the process of after the experience, what does it take place? How do we keep a close relationship with our repeated customers? And what are they looking for? And how do we keep a relationship in place that is sustainable, emotional, and long-lasting?
So designing the end-to-end experience.
Mm-hmm. And also, we seem to experience the same once we put an event together for companies like recently a financial industry. We did their anniversary of how long they've been in the local market, for example, and the big board was here, and it was a celebration for the global brand.
Okay, Rinos, do you do any sports? Do you play sports?
Of course.
What do you play? What are your favorite?
I play tennis.
Okay, tennis.
Play
awesome.
paddle.
Oh, I just played paddle last night. Okay, okay. Yeah. So do you like downhill ski racing?
I've never done it. Okay. My skiing is amateur.
Okay, so when you're playing tennis.
Yes.
Or paddle, and you're just in the groove. You could play all day. You feel great. Your serve's popping. Your first serve's going in, and you're just like hitting great shots in the baseline. You're just feeling really flow, right?
Yes, exactly. That's how we feel when we put events together.
Okay, amazing. and then I'm guessing if I said, Rinos, like go to the top of Val d'Isere and just ski down as fast as you possibly can without turning, that's going to terrify you. So there are certain things we do when we just feel in flow. We're just nailing it, like feel great. And there's some things that we do where we're out of our depth, right? And we're like, we can do it, but it's a bit of a struggle. So when you think of the clients that you serve, restaurants versus financial services, I can't remember the third, like when are you in flow? When you're like, these guys are getting such great value from me. We are nailing this project. I have confidence that this client is going to love the work we're doing. Is that financial services for you, or is that restaurants, or what is that?
Or is that experience?
We feel very comfortable with the financial industry because we've done it for a long time and we had success with it.
Great.
Is it something we are keen on? Maybe not so much, not as much as restaurants. And
the problem with for me, I mean, I'm not. You know your business better than me, but for me, restaurants are in the experience business. Mm-hmm. The owners, the people who work there, think of themselves as experienced marketers already. And so, although it could be like two peas in a pod sitting there talking to the owner of a restaurant about like, hey, we could do this, we could do that. It could be very energizing. I'm not sure it's as differentiating or as valuable for them because I think they could probably come up with a lot of ideas themselves. Whereas financial services people, the ones that I know, are boring. They're like their brands are boring. And experiential marketing, like you could blow their minds with a fairly straightforward experience, right? Because they're linear thinkers, they're type A, like they're just not experienced marketers generally. right? So if you're thinking about like, where would I get the highest value for what my services are? How could I like hire people to deliver what it is that I do? Maybe lesser qualified people so they can get me out of like doing some of the thinking and doing myself personally. I would have said you're probably better off focusing on financial services where like an intermediate level brander could blow the mind of an owner of a financial services company, whereas you personally would have to go into a restaurant to get them to pay attention. Do you agree? Or again, your business better than I do.
Yes. The thing is that when we work with the financial services, we don't get an opportunity to put an experiential event for the industry so often. Most of the times with the financial services is the typical. Some online ads, some website adjustments, some packaging for new offers. That tends to be boring for us.
Okay, stop. So it tends to be boring for you,
Yes.
which is where I started this very conversation. You like the mental masturbation of solving people's clients, which is great. I understand that you like that, and you can decide that I want to be a consultant for the rest of my life, and I'll never sell my company, but I'm happy because I love that. That's awesome. That's a great decision. Go do that. Go focus on that. If you want to take great vacations, and you want to build a business that can thrive without you, that doesn't need you showing up, you can't be the one doing the work.
Yeah, I understand that. I definitely understand that.
You know what I mean?
Yes, but the thing is right here, right now is, what do? Do I forget about everything else and concentrate on building a team that can produce on their own?
Yeah.
Or do I keep on doing what I love and I'm really good at and doing the work myself?
I think that's a deeper question, my man.
That's a big question.
That's a deeper question. I would love to have an answer if possible.
No, I can't answer that for you, but the answer needs to come from you.
Yeah,
100%.
My only advice, Reno, says don't be half pregnant. Don't think, I want to sell a business, but I still like the creativity work. Like that's when you get yourself into trouble because all your resources are getting sucked up by either you personally going off and doing this, and then you're hiring people, and it's just a mess. Like I think you have to be true to yourself and say, which one do I want to be, and go all in. But being kind of half is, I think, where we run into trouble.
We don't do anything half-assed. We are all in. Whatever we do it all in. This is a must do, and this is what we do here. All in or forget about it. But
Amazing.
It's the thing that, do we leave some things behind?
Yeah.
Big question, my man. John, I really, really appreciate your time. I'm very appreciative you've stayed over as well. I want to know where everybody can get in touch with you. What's the best place? What have you got for the top of your funnel, my man?
You can just go to valuebuilder.com, and if you're interested in learning what the value of your company might be, there's a form you can fill out, and we'll get in touch. And also for those of you who want to do more business consulting as opposed to branding consulting, but want to get all the way over to business consulting, you might want to join our group of advisors. So if you go to valuebuilder.com, there'll be a link for finding or learn more about becoming an advisor. So that's something that you can look at.
John, thank you so much, my man. I know you're not going to be able to sleep tonight knowing that Renos hasn't made a decision. As soon as he lets me know, I'll let you know what that decision is. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. Ciao for now.
Right. Cheers.
Bye-bye. We really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to learn more brand strategy techniques to level up your skills, make sure you check out brandmasteracademy.com. There's plenty of free resources and premium content for you to download and get you going. If you'd like to join our Facebook group full of like-minded brand strategists, all learning from each other, then find us by searching for the Brand Strategy Community, where you can find exclusive content from members as well. If you enjoyed this content, please be sure to give us an honest review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listened, and make sure you tune in for the next episode of the Brandmaster Podcast.